put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for a 60-minute deep dive into marketing for photographers, including marketing news and tips and photography website reviews. Here's your host, Joe Edelman.
Hey, that's me. How we doing, gang? It's Thursday night, and that means it's a marketing night. Hey, thank all of you for checking in and spending this next hour with me while we look at a photographer's website with the goal being to help him improve his business and hopefully give you guys some tips that are going to be able to help you improve your business or, for that matter, get your business off the ground. So make sure you stay till the end. If you remember last week, I announced a really awesome contest. We've already gotten a ton of entries, but this contest is going to run until the beginning of April, so you're going to have more opportunities to enter, and I'll tell you how in the end of the evening. And continuing, we have a sponsor again tonight, and that sponsor is the domain extension .space. .space has been absolutely awesome, not only in sponsoring the TogChat programs on Thursday nights, but also giving me a huge pile of one-year registrations of .space domain names to give to you guys, my viewers. So again, tonight, we're going to have 5 .space domain names to give away. And just in case you haven't been following along, .space is becoming a very well-known domain extension for creatives. Obviously, .com's out there. There's even .photo. There's .photography. .space is becoming known as the domain extension where you can find artists, graphic designers, photographers, you name it. So stay tuned. You'll have an opportunity to win a full one-year registration of your own .space domain name. Okay? Now, I want to dig right in tonight. I want to get into things quickly. Before I do that, let me take care of one little piece of business. Obviously, we're here to look at a photographer's website and to talk about marketing. So if you have a website that you would like to get reviewed right here on TogChat, you can submit that website for an upcoming episode. The link is in the description below. It's real simple. It's tog.chat/webreview. And when you fill out the little form that you're going to find there, I'm going to ask you 3 simple questions. So let's go ahead and take a look at tonight's website, and I'll tell you what those questions are. So our photographer tonight is a gentleman named Gary Geddes. He is from Elk Grove in California, here in the United States. So the first of the 3 questions that I ask every photographer before I review their website, number 1, tell me about yourself so I know a little bit about who I'm reviewing. So Gary tells me that, yes, he is one of those guys that started out doing landscapes, but he would like to do portraits, families, and also seniors. He's not planning to quit his day job yet, but he would definitely like to get this going so that he can make some extra money, satisfy the creative side of himself, and be able to take and produce more photos. Cool. The second question that I ask is, tell me about your website. So he's been making changes based on some of the TogChats that he's seen already. So that's good. I shouldn't have too much to pick apart here. He's sure that there are a few tweaks that need to be done yet. He's having a hard time letting go of his landscape pictures, deciding should he leave them on the website or should he take them off the website. And we'll talk about that and we'll take a look at some of those shots. He is on Wix, which you guys can already see. You see the Wix logo down there at the bottom. He is planning on getting the site off of Wix, but he really wants to make a couple bucks first. So that's the goal there, okay? And then the last question that I ask every photographer whose website that I review, what would you like me to help you accomplish? So in Gary's words, I'm kind of on the slow road to getting started, but I feel like I need to speed things up. I'm laying the foundation, as I guess you can say, by building up my website and making improvements based off the reviews he's been watching here on TogChat. His biggest problem is knowing how to get the clients, and he puts with a question mark, Craigslist? So basically, he's saying that he will take people's photographs right now pretty much for dirt cheap if he needs to, but he's looking for a way to really be able to get his head wrapped around how does he market himself and how does he build some momentum. So the good part is, Gary, I can help you with that, okay? So we have here a very simple and very clean design. Gary does have his own domain name. You can see it's his name, GaryGeddes.com, and I will actually put that in the chat window for you guys. If you want to be able to bring it up and go ahead and put me in the background, you can definitely do that. I will not be offended. The website here is probably a little bit more interesting to look at than I am, okay? So we've got a very traditional slider carousel on the front page. We've got 3 links. I love simple. For a photographer that's doing portraits and family portraits and things like that, and who's not, looking at offering all kinds of services and doing weddings and doing commercial work, simple is awesome. So he's got 3 simple links. He's got a very clean, very simple logo, which is about as obvious as it gets. And that's a good thing. Gary Getty's Photography. There is no mistaking what is going on in this website. Perfect. Down at the bottom, we've got 2 social media links, so we need to up that game a little bit, but we'll get to that. We've got our copyright notices, and for the sake of search engine optimization, we also have reaffirmed that he is a family and senior portrait photographer from Elk Grove near Sacramento, California. Now, on the homepage, we'll leave the pictures to last. I want to get through the website here, and then I do want to be able to go back and I want to talk a little bit about the photographs. Since Gary's really just at that turning point where he's trying to get this off the ground, I also want to try and do a little bit of a portfolio review for him. So the only major change, if you want to call it major, that I would recommend for the homepage, Gary, and this is something that you may not be able to do with Wix. So you're going to have to explore your template a little bit to see what your options are. But I would encourage you to try to get a tagline up at the top of the website also that says family senior portrait photography. The pictures indeed are fairly obvious, but it's one of those things. You can't be, when you're marketing on the internet, you can't be too obvious. There really is no such thing. So if at all possible to get a tagline up there, do that. Even if you wind up having to include it in your logo as part of a JPEG or a GIF, that would be okay. Preferably, it's going to be text so that Google can also read it. But if it means that you have to kind of redo the logo to get that tagline underneath, if you can make the logo a little bit bigger, I would do that. But get that line up top so that people see that when they first come to the website. Also, guys, I wanted to point out to you, and the irony here has not been lost on quite a few of you. You don't see the ads when you watch TogChat live. But if you watch it replayed, apparently one of the companies that buys a lot of ad space on my Thursday night talk chats is Wix. So to further prove to you guys that I intend, even when I have sponsorships, to only talk to you about products that I believe in and not to sell out and just start pitching stuff. You guys have heard me say it before, I'll say it again. Wix sucks. And so, Gary acknowledged that. He knows he's got to move off of there. But I wanted to point something out to you. One of the reasons why. Some of you may be watching this on a Chrome browser or maybe even a Firefox browser. I'm using Safari because I'm on Macs. I'm using Safari right now. And you see this bar that's like sitting over here on the left-hand side? That's a coding issue with this particular Wix template. I also have this website up in a Chrome browser right behind me. The bar's not there. It doesn't have the same issue. I haven't checked it on Firefox, but it's kind of one of those things that's typical of what you see on Wix. Also, because of the way Wix does things, which is really weird, if you reduce the size of your browser, it doesn't matter if you're in Chrome, Firefox, or Safari, if you reduce the size of your browser while you're looking at this website, you'll notice that you get not 1, but 2 scroll bars. So Wix uses kind of a really kind of funky frame scenario, which, again, all stuff that is not going to, play very well. Before I leave the homepage, there's one thing that we haven't talked about a lot, or I should say I haven't talked about a lot, and I realize I need to start talking about more, and Gary has given me the perfect setup to discuss it. And that is something that's referred to as the title tag of your page. Now, be patient and take a deep breath, especially those of you that are a little technophobic and get all kind of freaked out when you see computer code and all that stuff. This is not hardcore stuff. I'm going to show you what's going on in the background. That's the part that might scare you a little bit, but it's pretty simple. So in the interface where you build your Wix website, or whether you're using a Squarespace website, or whether you're using Format, which is the company that I use for my portfolio website, or even if you're using WordPress, there is a field where you are able to put your website's title. And then on a page-by-page basis, you are able to give the pages a title. Those titles are extremely important. Do not overlook them. You have to pay attention to them, and you have to put a little bit of effort into them. Google pays a lot of attention to the title tags. Back in the early days of the internet, you heard people talk about keywords all the time, and there was literally white hat and black hat SEO methods. So SEO meaning search engine optimization, because back in the early days of the web, if you weren't being found in search engines, you weren't being found. We didn't have social media then. It was like back in the dark ages, all of 15 years ago, right? So you had to rely on the search engines. You guys have heard me say many times, search engines are becoming less and less important in the process of marketing your photography, but that doesn't mean you ignore them at all, ever. So in this case, the title that Gary has typed in for his home page is photographer. It's about as generic as it comes, meaning, Gary, nobody is going to go to Google and type in photographer and have your website pop up. Not going to happen. How do I know that without doing anything else here? I can see it right here on my screen. Notice on the tab, there's the word photographer. So those of you, especially if you use multiple tabs, if you ever pay attention to what's up here at the top in these tabs, that's where those words come from. Those words come from the title tag in the page that you're looking at. So even from the standpoint of somebody viewing your website, and let's say it's somebody looking to get a senior portrait done. It's a high school kid, and they're looking at a couple different photographers, and they've got tabs open because they need to show them to mom and dad. And this one's just photographer. There's no name, doesn't say where, there's nothing. So just to show you guys the techie part, because there's one other thing that I found when I looked at the code in Gary's page here, that there's a small mistake you've got to correct, Gary. If you right-click on the page, and we're going to show the frame source in this case, and the only reason it's showing frame source as opposed to page source is because it's Wix. They use frames and all that kind of stuff. So I told you, it's a lot of like programming gobbledygook, but the important stuff to look at, it's real simple. It's right here. It's these lines where it says meta name equals keywords, meta name equals description, and where in the world did meta name equals title? Oh, there it is, sorry. And then title is right here, okay? So for whatever reason, interestingly enough, Gary's got the title tag set up properly, but it's only showing the last word. So this is something that Wix is doing to him, which is unfortunate, because as much as I was about to give him a hard time for not putting in good information, he's got good information. He's saying that he is in Elk Grove, that's the location, family and senior portrait photographer. So that's actually very good. So Gary, it's possible that maybe you've got an extra space, or maybe there's some kind of odd character that's not showing up in the code, but it's in your interface. So I would encourage you, open up your template where you build your site in the back end, and retype the information that's in that title, so that hopefully we can get it all to show up for you. The other thing that's important, pretty much keywords at this point, if your template allows you to put keywords in, if you're working on WordPress, any of that kind of stuff, you can ignore keywords completely. Google has been adamant. They do not pay attention to keywords. They do not care about keywords. Bing, if you worry about Bing at all, Bing follows suit. Keywords are not an issue. But this one is the meta name equals description. And again, this is something, I don't care if you're on Squarespace, Format, Wix, any of them, you have the ability to enter this information for every page of your website. So Gary, just be really careful, because you have a typo here where you have spelled Sacramento wrong. So that means all the information that you've put in here is not going to help you if somebody's looking for a photographer in Sacramento, unless they misspell the word Sacramento. So you do want to make sure that you correct that, okay? All right, let me close out of all this code so that I don't give people a headache with that there, okay? And let's look at what we've got under the portfolio tab. So as Gary told us, he wants to do family portraits, kids, high school seniors, and he's struggling with getting rid of his landscapes. So we'll deal with those last, okay? So I just want to click on at least one of these to see what we got. So we go in here. We have, again, a nice simple gallery with the thumbnails underneath. Right now, Gary, what this tells me is that you've only ever done one family portrait session. So you're kind of in a tough place here in the sense that you want to do more of these, but you're basically telling people you've only ever done one. So my sincere advice to you would be, for right now, I would eliminate this family portrait section and include it under portraits. In the meanwhile, because you could do that in 5 minutes. That's 5 minutes worth of work. Done. Then you need to go find some families to photograph, even for free, which Craigslist is perfect for that, and we'll come back to the Craigslist thing. But go find a couple families to photograph for free. Offer them a free family portrait. Offer them like one 8x10, because let's face it, you're in California. You can send your files off to Bay Photo, get an 8x10 made for like $3 or $4, probably less. So that's your thank you to them. Anything else they want, they've got to pay for. You're not going to give it to them for free, but that's the trade. They're going to pose for a family portrait for you. You're going to give them an 8x10, and then they've got access to a wonderful, family portrait beyond that if they want it. No social media files, none of that stuff, without them at least paying you a couple of bucks. You don't have to charge them big bucks, but just a couple of bucks, okay? So, but right now, this is advertising the wrong message. And the problem that we have is we've got 4 shots of the same family. One is the best shot. The others are okay. So lose this page for now, okay? When we go into children, we at least get a couple more pictures here, which is good. So we've got some really young kids. We've got little kids, clearly a family of kids that we're looking at. So the challenge here is we have 1 or 2 that are really, really good, and then we have others that are kind of filling in the blanks. So I would definitely encourage you, let's drop that family portrait section. Let's get it all under here. Remember, I say this every week. You can look like a rock star with 5 pictures or a hack with 10. You don't want to water down your presentation, ever, okay? When we go to the Portraits tab, now we have a lot more images to work with, and indeed, I think that you would do just fine. And to be honest with you, Gary, at this point, I would almost encourage you just have one tab for now, just portfolio. So in other words, there's no drop down. We'll talk about landscapes in a minute, but I would just lose the drop down altogether, have it called portfolio, and put all your images into one. It would be different if you were doing weddings, and it would be different if you were also doing events, etc. But I would not create all these different categories until you're feeling a little bit more confident that you have built up your portfolio. And I think by doing that sincerely, you're going to make yourself look much, much more impressive as a photographer. And then you don't have to take that approach that you mentioned in the form where it's like, well, do I just get clients on the cheap, and give the work away to build my portfolio? I'll talk about some ways that you can get your portfolio built up also without doing it completely for free. But my advice to you at this point, one portfolio, all your best images in there. That way, you're not going to show 4 of the same family portrait. You're not going to show 3 or 4 of the same 3 kids out in the field. You're going to trim that down. It'll make a much better presentation. Okay? So we're going to come back to landscapes and some of the other stuff. The About Me page. So, hi, my name is Gary Geddes. Okay, that's one of those like non-starter starts. It's almost like the welcome to, because your name's up here. So, you don't really need to do the hello thing. And, it's interesting because I give people a hard time always about remembering that when you're typing on a computer for a website or when you're typing into social media, to remember that there is a person on the other side. So you've got a good argument, Gary, that, well, okay, if there's a person on the other side and I haven't met them, I'm introducing myself and saying, hi, I'm Gary. It's, not a huge deal there. But honestly, by the time they get to this About Me page, they've already seen your name. They've already seen your logo. I don't think that you really need to do the hello, my name is. If you want to make money, the first thing that you need to have here is actually this paragraph. My focus is on the family and senior portraits. I love working on location in homes, parks, lakes, rivers, all that kind of stuff. I serve the Sacramento area. That's great. I'd love to get to know you, help you plan your custom portrait experience. All of that, wonderful. I would, after the my focus is on family and senior portraits, move this sentence. My main goals, capture portraits. That should be next. And the reason being, and by the way, all of this paragraph should be first. What you've got to convince people is that you have their best interest in mind. People are interested in what are you going to do for them. They want to know what is their experience with you going to be like. One of the things that you don't want to talk about, how photography has become an outlet for you. They don't care. They're not paying for you to have an outlet, right? So lose that. You can say that you started out in landscape photography, but don't talk about taking courses, because it's not the courses that made you love portrait photography. It's the fact that you went out and you used the information from the courses and you experimented with it and tried it, and then you fell in love with it. Talk a little bit more about yourself. So here's the same thing that I say almost every week, and every photographer dreads this line, but 300 words. Get it up to 300 words. If you are one of those people who absolutely hates having to write about yourself and finds it extremely painful, if you don't have a friend or a relative that can help you with it, go to a website like Fiverr.com or go to a website like Thumbtack.com. Hire a writer to help you out. Fiverr will be the cheapest. Indeed, you can probably get it done for... You won't get it done for $5, not with 300 words. It'll probably cost you $10 or $15, which is pocket change in the big scheme of things. Thumbtack will be a little bit more. The bonus with Thumbtack is you'll find more writers that are US based that also speak your language. So there is some value to that. It really depends on what you want to do. But the point is, don't overlook the importance of this page. And remember, it's a juggling act. You're really trying to make this page about your clients, your potential clients, more so than you. But they also want to learn about you as well as what it's going to be like to work with you. So those are the things that you've got to build into here. I would not have your picture all the way down here at the bottom. I'd really love to see you move it up into the text area. Okay. If you're not sure how to do that, and I know right after I type this, Troy Hall is going to type the answer in here, but let me tell you also, all you got to do is Google how to right justify or how to left justify an image, period. And you're going to get back a whole tutorial, which is real simple. It's literally just, a set of kind of code that you're going to put into the HTML tag. And I do know that Wix, just like WordPress, just like Format, just like Squarespace, they will let you go in and edit the HTML in the content area of your page. They won't let you edit the HTML in the template and the design, but they'll let you edit the HTML and the content. So this is simple HTML. Does not mean that you've got to know, like, oh my God, go take a course in HTML. No, I promise you, you don't need to do that. But get that image up into the text area and either left or right justify. And given the way that you're posed here, you could go either way. Now, that being said, though, Gary, I know you're a member of my group. You need to take my challenge that I've been giving to all the photographers in my group. You've got to really up your game with your profile picture. Lose the camera. They're on a website that talks about you being a great photographer. So straight up, just make it about you. They know you're a photographer already. So make the picture about you. Closer. Let's see who you are, okay? Roger McLeod, good grammar is important for this stuff. Good grammar won't turn anyone off, but poor grammar will. There's a lot of value to that, but I'm going to give you two sides of that, actually. So I'm glad you typed that, Roger, because it's a very valid point. Obviously, especially my wife being an educator, you learn in school. This is the way grammar's done. Flip side of that, gang, my grammar sucks. So here's my philosophy. And this is contrary to what a lot of people will teach, but it's worked for me. So I'm not saying it has to work for you, but I think that you'll understand the balance point between Roderick's statement, which is a very wise statement, and kind of my philosophy. When I post my blog articles, as an example, on my website, literally what I do is I pay a young college student to take my video scripts and edit them into a blog. And the editing that she does is two things. One, she takes out any references to, video, because that would sound weird if you were reading it as an article. But then she also makes sure that I am not completely obliterating grammar, because I do. So she takes care of that for me. But there have been many, many times in my career where I know that I have posted things because I've gotten nasty messages from hardcore English grammar Nazis about how bad the grammar was. And yet, ironically, they were things that were incredibly well received because of the quality of the content, the intent, and the personality. So there's a balance. So if I had to choose right now, if I had to choose between what Gary has here, having 300 words in it, or waiting another 3 weeks to get the grammar perfect, oh, hell no. 300 words now, as long as it represents Gary's personality, his energy, and most importantly, passion for creating great photographs. So, again, I completely agree with Roderick, but gang, do not use that as an excuse for not being able to get it done. And I'll give you a little tip. If you ever have to, rely strictly on yourself for the grammar, there's a two-step process that will save you a lot of the grammar mistakes. And this is kind of clunky, but it works. Write your article or whatever you have to write in Microsoft Word. Make sure you have the spell check turned on and make sure you have the grammar check turned on. It's not perfect. But then, before you upload it, take what you've written in Microsoft Word and go to Google Docs. And then paste that article into Google Docs. And Google Docs actually has a separate set of algorithms. It will pick up some things that Word doesn't pick up. Between the two of them, you'll be able to get your grammar and your punctuation really functional. Not perfect, but really functional. So that's another one of kind of my self-preservation tricks that I've used multiple times to make sure that, I get things functional as far as grammar goes if I don't have an editor available. So, Gary's here, just got in and heard what we said about the profile picture. That one was originally for a business card. Do you think it works for that, or shall I just use the one pic for both? Gary, you should be using one picture for everything you do, because really your face and that image is your brand. This is no different than, that picture of me doing my mouth open pose. That picture is everywhere. Everywhere that Joe Edelman is, that picture is. So it's my profile picture on my website, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, all of them. So that way, when somebody stumbles across my profile, they recognize that image immediately, even without really paying attention to it. That's why. So the profile picture, you want that to show up everywhere. Okay? So you've got your homework assignment there. Let's click on the contact page real quick. We've got the contact me. If you'd like to talk about how I can help you with your portrait needs, send me a message. And so this is the one page actually where you can say a lot less. And I would actually say a lot less. We're not worried about this page showing up in Google because Google doesn't care about a contact page. Basically, this is where you actually want to be right on the edge of demanding. Just contact me. Do it. The idea that you'll get back within 24 hours, excellent. You don't have to say, hey, you can email or do the form or telephone or text, because all that's right there and people will get that. So I would trim that down, slim it down, boom, get right to the point and basically tell people what you want. Contact me. Done. You don't have to give them a sales pitch on this page, because by the time somebody clicks on the contact page, they've decided they want to contact you. So you don't have to do touchy-feely on this page. You don't have to be extra nice on this page. At this point, by the time somebody gets to your contact page, they've made a decision. They want to interact with you. Make it as simple as possible. They don't want to have to read a whole bunch of stuff. They don't want to have to hunt for the phone number if they're ready to call you. The fact that you have telephone and text on here, Gary, is good. I think you may have heard that on one of my previous TogChats, but that's very good. If you're going to work with high school seniors, they better be able to send you a text message. As annoying as it may be, have them send you a text message because that eliminates a barrier to doing business with you. They like to text. So that's all good. I saw that you had this click here to fill out the client questionnaire. Now, I did take a peek at this, and I'm going to tell you straight up. I will click over so everybody can see what's here. Remove this link completely. If you want, keep the client questionnaire, but send out this client questionnaire once you've actually booked someone for a shoot. So, Gary's asking, you're asking for email address, name, phone number, call, names of the family members. Tell me about your family. Do you have children? Describe the ideal mood. Do you have specific expectations? So obviously this is geared specifically for family portraits, but it's not for high school seniors. It's not for a regular portrait. So if someone is on this contact page and they click on that and they get there, and the first couple questions are about family members, it's kind of like, well, all right, well, wait a minute. Maybe he's not really doing what I want him to do or whatever. It's honestly confusing. So my advice would be keep this Google form. But once someone has made contact with you and you've had a phone conversation with them and you're moving forward with a shoot, then by all means, send them this questionnaire. And that way, you're not going to create a situation where you're causing any confusion, any of that kind of stuff. Okay. So I would just, at least for now, remove that. Okay. So I want to look at your social media, Gary, and then I'm going to come back and deal with the landscapes dilemma. Okay. So Gary, on every one of the pages, it's a template, right? He's got two links. He's got his Facebook page and he's got his Instagram page. So we'll start out. We'll take a quick look at Facebook. So Gary, you definitely got to get your Facebook game on here. So the first thing that's obviously really, really obvious is you've got no timeline cover. Make a timeline cover. Take one of your shots, get your logo on top of it, and make a timeline cover. So we already talked about the profile picture. That's fine. In the intro, it doesn't tell me that you're a photographer. Why not? That's a problem. Fix all of that stuff, okay? So, the good part about, and by the way, Gary, I sent you a friend request. So, make sure you accept it, okay? Because I'll be hurt if you don't. Definitely up your game on the Facebook stuff. You guys have heard me talk before, and Gary, I'm pretty sure you've heard me talk about the fact that, yes, you need to do a Facebook business page. You do need to do that. But this page, your personal page, this is the one where you're going to get the action from. This is the one where you'll actually be able to really connect with these high school seniors, okay? Pamela, are there questionnaires like this floating around that we can use? Yes, but don't use them. Hang tight until the end, and I'll tell you why. In fact, okay, good. Chad's got that question here in the form, or in my little notes for me, so I'll make sure I come back to that so I can tell you about it, okay? So, what is this? Being a photographer. Here, wait, I'm sorry. Diversion. Shiny object. I have to read this. How people think photographers spend their time. Most of it taking pictures, a little bit of it having fun. How photographers actually spend their time. Yeah, the only problem with this for me is that that red slice is actually a whole lot smaller. And I always got the impression that people actually thought the red slice was a whole lot bigger on this side. But anyway, so, nothing wrong with that. But indeed, I would try and stay focused. The idea that you got pictures of your boys goofing around and that kind of stuff, awesome. Totally awesome. You have the portrait of your wife on here. That's the way that you kind of give people the sense of who you are and all that kind of stuff. That's great. But definitely you want this page to make it clear, hey, you're a photographer. And then, of course, you need the business page, okay? The other one that you have is your Instagram. We've got a different profile picture. So again, and either way, this one is also, you're still too far away. Closer, 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 okay? Here we've got a mix of your portraits and your landscape work. So here's my advice on the Instagram thing, Gary. You can have multiple Instagram accounts. You may need to go set up like a Gmail address or something to do the other one. Not to spoil the unveiling here, and I know some people, they've already gone and looked at your landscapes anyway. You've got some really awesome landscape work, man. So right out of the box, if you want to build a business doing portraits, senior portraits, that kind of stuff, The Golden Gate Bridge is not going to sell you a portrait session, especially not with a teenager. So you need to do two different profiles. You should keep doing your landscapes and you should show them off, but make a separate account for that. And then have one account that is just your portrait work so that there's a very clear focus. Very, very important, okay? So that's really the big thing with your, your Instagram profile. Make sure that when you're doing your portrait posts, since you are a local portrait photographer, in other words, you're working in Elk Grove, Sacramento area, Elk Grove, Sacramento should be part of your hashtags. Portrait photography is almost a pointless hashtag, as is photo shoot, as is portrait, because by themselves, they're going into the worldwide mix of hashtags for portraits, hashtags for portrait photography. So the likelihood that a teenager in Sacramento who actually checks the hashtags for portraits are going to find you is actually pretty slim. So make sure that you're getting the local tags in as well. The local tags are also going to get you likes and notices from local chamber of commerce, local businesses, etc., who actually monitor the local tags for their marketing purposes. So it's really important for all of you guys that are using Instagram. If you're relying on customers that are in your area, make sure you're using local tags. Super, super important. If you were to go look at my Instagram, you won't see any local tags at all. And the reason being, I'm not taking portraits and weddings and events in the Allentown, Pennsylvania area. So I don't tag for it. I want people to do portraits globally and find me because I have learning opportunities for them, that kind of thing. So obviously it's a different need, different thing I'm selling. But for any of you that are doing like local type selling with portraits, weddings, events, you need to make sure that you're using your local town names and tags in your Instagram stuff. Don't get to the point where you're putting 50 tags in. A little Instagram trick for all of you. This one's not excessive, Gary. You're okay with that. But I would encourage you, instead of talking about, hey, this was a studio strobe for a film noir look, because do we really think a teenager gives a damn about that? No. You should talk about how much fun you had working with this young lady and how much of a pleasure she was to work with and how pleased you are with the outcome thanks to her. Be modest. And then do one hashtag, just one. And then as soon as you do the post, open up that post, make a comment. In the comment, you could put 50 hashtags if you want. Instagram will factor the additional hashtags as long as they come from the original poster of the image. So I hope you all follow along with that, okay? Do your post with more than 5 or 6 words in it. Make it about the subject and your experience with the subject. One hashtag. And then put the additional hashtags afterwards. It's a little bit more work. And I'll raise my hand and be right hand. I'll be completely honest. I don't do that all the time. I should. In fact, my daughter-in-law has a my son and my daughter-in-law have a Bernese Mountain Dog, and they have a very popular Instagram profile for their Bernese Mountain Dog. And she reminds me routinely and gives me a hard time about dumping my hashtags into the post. And she's right. So you ideally, in a perfect world, you want the post to be reader/viewer friendly. One hashtag, put all the other hashtags in the first comment. It's going to work out a lot cleaner. It's going to look a lot better. Okay. Instagram for me, since I'm not getting local clients and I'm not looking for people to commission me to shoot right now, Instagram is kind of my necessary evil in the social media. I do it and I actually get great response from it, but it's the one that's really giving me the least amount of traction for what I'm doing. In the case of a portrait, wedding photographer, event photographer, Instagram super, super, super important. So definitely make sure that you're putting lots of emphasis on what you're doing with Instagram. Okay? All right. So now let's come back to that last portfolio that we didn't look at. And that was the landscape one. And guys, I'm actually, for once, I'm doing really good for time here. So make sure that you're loading up some questions. We'll have about 15 minutes, 12 minutes or so at the end. I will take your questions. Obviously, tonight we want to deal with marketing, prices, all that kind of stuff. We want to save photography stuff for next Monday and, of course, next Wednesday. But go ahead and start loading some questions in. So for your landscape stuff here, Gary, you've got some really nice stuff. My advice to you would be to try and sell some of this stuff. What I would encourage you to do is I would maybe look at SmugMug, or you could do Zenfolio, any of the sites or the templated site operations where they're going to allow you to post images and make them available for sale and have it set up so that when the order is placed, it goes right to the lab. The lab prints it, frames it, mounts it, whatever they're doing, and ships it direct to the client. And then you just get a deposit in your PayPal account or your checking account. That would be the way to go for your landscape stuff. You could do that for probably less than $20 a month, which means that if you manage to sell, one print for $100 or a couple $100, you're going to cover your costs easy. So one other thing that I want to tell you about your photography that you have up here. In fact, whoops, I clicked on it again. Let me hit to the kids here. One of the things that I noticed when I was looking through your photography, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a challenge. You would benefit tremendously from putting a little bit more emphasis during your shoot. So this is kind of a mental thing in here, putting a little bit more emphasis on use of depth of field, blurrier backgrounds. A shot like this is going to be difficult, but still you could, a lot of this background that's way back here, you could have that soft. And when I say blurry backgrounds, I don't mean that you need to go shoot everything wide open, Gary. That's not what I mean. But I am very confident this image was not shot at f4 or not shot at f5.6, and it could have been. Another example here, the kids in the field, it gets a little soft. So this is one of those shots, since it looks like you're using a wide angle lens, where it probably would have benefited you to go ahead and kind of really push the envelope, maybe get it down to like f4. You have to be really, really careful about your focal point so that you get everybody in focus. But to have a little bit of a softer background would be really nice. A shot like this is the perfect example. There's no reason to have that much detail in the background because there's nothing interesting that's going on there. So I think what you've got to get yourself to is a point where you're really kind of working on some of the creative elements of your shot now. Now, again, none of that means put your business goals on hold. No guts, no glory. You got to get going. You got to make some money. If nothing else, it pays for the habit. So it just means that when you're shooting, you've got to start putting more emphasis on these details because these are the details that are really going to elevate your shots. For the most part, your pictures look like you're making good connections with your subjects. Your subjects look relaxed. They don't look overly nervous. So really now what you've got to do is you've got to get all your technical stuff down and really start to get some emphasis on making these things pop. The only real thing that I will point out that you do a lot, and I know you do it, it shows up in a bunch of your images. I have a feeling you struggle a little bit with what to do with people's hands because you have a lot of shots where people have their arms folded. It seems that you do that quite a bit. Oh, I just noticed this shot's in here twice. Shouldn't be in both galleries. So literally going back to what we talked about, you're going to knock everything down to one gallery and you're going to be good to go. If you're struggling with hands, number one, practice. Number two, in the meantime, leave the hands out of the shot or give people something to do with the hands. With kids, most of them have hobbies or activities they're involved with. Use a prop from that hobby or from that activity. But that's definitely something you want to focus on a little bit to try and get away from doing the crossed arms all the time, especially with young kids. Not really kind of the ideal feel to the shot. But your work is good. You're at a point though where you need to really just fine-tune things a little, and it's really going to jump. I get the impression that you're very kind of afraid of the posing aspect of it. So really what it comes down to is you got to stop being afraid. You got to go for it. You just got to dive in and go for it. So that being said, now let's get back to and there's a couple things that are going to fall into this piece of the conversation, and then we'll get some questions. The question of what do we do about the landscape stuff, and how do we get people to shoot for sessions to be able to build out the portfolio? Do we do it for cheap? Whatever. Okay, so a lot of times people have commented when I do these talk chats that I should have been a psychologist and that I'm giving therapy to people. So I want to point out something here that I'm going to roll the dice, guys. I have not, just so we're all clear, I have not talked to Gary. Gary is a member of my Facebook group. He's also one of my supporters on Patreon, which, by the way, I really appreciate. But I have not had a conversation with him. I do not know him personally. But when I look at your work, Gary, and I look at your website, and when I combine that with the things that you told me in the form, which I read out loud to everyone, I believe that you took the courses in photography. I don't believe that you are passionate about shooting people and portraits. I don't see passion in your portraits. So if I'm a betting man, and by all means, tell me that I'm completely clueless, because I'm going out on a limb, but I'm willing to fail and look like an idiot here. But if I'm a betting man, the evolution that got you to doing portraits and seniors and that kind of stuff is probably more based on the idea that this photography stuff is damn expensive. And I want more gear. I want cool stuff, but I've got to be fiscally responsible. I've got to find a way to justify it. And better yet, what better way to do it than make some money to pay for it? And then it becomes a hobby that obviously the wife's not going to be upset about. It doesn't eat into the family budget. All very logical thinking. But I don't see passion. And then I get to your landscape stuff, and I see passion in your images. I see images that have mood, that have feeling. This is clearly the stuff you enjoy. So the reason I'm pointing that out, and I'm risking, and hopefully I have not offended you because that is not my goal, but the reason why I wanted to touch base on that is because I see a lot of people do this. And what this is they say, well, yeah, all right, I'll do weddings. Or, yeah, okay, I'll do portraits. Not really what I want to do, but I know I can make money there because portrait photographers make money. Wedding photographers make money. And then they fail miserably. They fail miserably because they're not passionate about it. And let's face it, Gary, even by your own comments and where you're at with your website now, you're kind of at this in-between spot where like you want to start making money, but you're really, really struggling. And to be honest with you, I really think the only reason you're struggling about making money is because you're really not that passionate about the making the money part. I mean, you want the money. I got that. But believe me, you guys have heard me say this before. Professional photographers are the biggest idiots in the world, myself included. Nobody picks up a camera because they want to make money. We pick up a camera because we're interested in what it does. It's the artistic approach. It's the creative aspect. For some people, it's truly the science and the physics. But we don't pick up a camera for the very first time with the idea, ooh, let me try taking a picture because I can make money with that camera. No. But what happens is we pick up the cameras and we develop this passion. It becomes almost like a disease. We can't put the cameras down. We can't use them enough. And then at some point, there is a catalyst that happens and we get this really stupid idea. And that stupid idea is, wouldn't it be cool if I could make money with this thing? That way I could buy more of these things and justify it. And then we get even dumber yet. Because then we decide, oh, you know what? Well, if I could make money to buy more cameras, why not make enough money so that I could support myself and pay my bills? All of it sounds completely logical. But then we all have the same horrible experience. It is, especially if you're like me and you're one of those people that just kind of jumps off the cliff and says, okay, throw everything to the wind. I'm going to go do this. No safety net. Then you have this harsh realization of, holy crap, all that stuff I like to do, I can't do that because I need to make money. So that being said, where I'm headed with this, Gary, is if you are passionate about the landscape work and you want to make money to be able to support your habit, we all have that habit, then I'm going to kick you in the ass and say, well, why aren't you making money with your landscape? Now, let's be clear. Doing portraits, if you hustle your butt off, yeah, you could be making a lot of money doing portraits, doing a lot of sessions every week. It's going to be a little tougher with landscape photography. It's going to be a little bit of a slower process. But the point is, you could build that Smug Mug or Zenfolio or Pixie Set website. You could be selling stuff. And keep in mind, you don't just build the website and leave it out there. Understand, gang, all of you, having a website, putting up a website is like putting up a billboard in the middle of the desert. Nobody knows it's there and nobody cares. That's what social media is for. And that's what's so great about social media, because we don't have to rely on somebody stumbling on it through a search engine. And we don't have to kill ourselves to try and make sure they do stumble on it. So once you put that site up, you've got to use social media. You've got to go out and you've got to show off your work and you've got to market your work. But I look at these images, I could totally see people purchasing these images framed to hang on their walls. And I have a feeling you probably have a lot more of them. Just based on the way you wrote your answers in your form, I get the sense that you're holding back on some of your landscape stuff because you know you don't want that, you shouldn't have that overwhelming all the portrait stuff, since it's the portrait stuff you're selling. So, short version of this, Gary, don't kid yourself. Be honest with yourself about what you really want to do. And it's better to figure that out now than a year or two from now, after you've burned off tons of energy and time and effort. And I'm not saying that it's, I don't mean it to sound like it's clear that you don't enjoy people and portraits and that, but it's very clear that you're passionate about landscapes. So my advice to you would be, depending on what your needs are, depending on what your real goals are, you got to be honest with yourself, and that's the direction you got to go in. But either way, if you stick with the people stuff, you could make money on this landscape stuff with a minimal amount of effort. Now, when I say minimal amount of effort, making money requires effort, period. Understand that, gang. But there's no reason why you couldn't put this stuff up, start using it on social media, posting it, showing it off, but keep the two businesses separately. You could still have Gary Getty's photography at the current domain, GaryGettys.com, and that's your portraits. And then maybe do a URL that's Gary Getty's landscape. And when they come to that page, it's the same exact logo. You could use the same exact template even. All that would be absolutely fine. So, you don't need to completely rebrand, but you just want to separate them so that you can market them completely independently. Ken Olinger, my preferred website provider for my portfolio website. That's the joeedelman.com. I use format.com. It's a company out of Toronto, Canada. In my opinion, they are the better alternative to Squarespace. Very similar to Squarespace, except their user interface for building your sites, much friendlier, much easier to use, number one. Number two, they are a company that is built to support photographers and creatives only. That's it. So all of their designs are really geared towards photographers. The other reason why I don't like Squarespace, other than the fact that they're expensive, is that everybody uses Squarespace. You guys hear me talk on the photography side all the time about don't go to group shoots because your pictures look the same as everybody else's. Well, why would you use the company that everybody's using their templates? Because everybody's website looks the same. So Squarespace, no. Format.com, awesome. In fact, Kent, there's a link in the description below the video. If you use that link, number one, they know that I sent you, which is greatly appreciated. I make no money. Full disclosure, I make no money from Format at all. I'm not on an affiliate program or any of that kind of stuff. But you will get your first month free with Format. And they do have a free trial, but you'll get your first month of service free if you use that link. And then for WordPress hosting, so my blog, which is joeedelman.photography, my blog is on WordPress, and I host that with a company called SiteGround. Awesome company. They're a European company. Awesome prices. Super service. Great uptime. No issues. Love them. And I've worked with a bunch. I've worked with the small providers. Well, when I say small, the cheap providers like GoDaddy. I've worked with the more expensive WordPress specialty companies like WP Engine, which are much pricier. SiteGround, best service. Overall, best customer service. Awesome prices. There's a link also in the description below. Full disclosure, that one is an affiliate link. I do get a couple pennies if you sign up with them, but those are the two that I highly encourage you to use, okay? So that being said, Gary, I wish you luck. You've got a lot of good stuff to work with here. The one last thing that I told you I would mention for you, and then I want to hit these few questions, was with regards to the Craigslist thing. You're going to find paid work via Facebook. via Instagram by continually posting. You're not posting frequently enough. You're not showing off enough work. Part of that is because you're not shooting enough. So, and I get it, with a day job, that's a challenge. But what you need to do is you need to be getting more stuff that you can keep posting and keep that momentum going. Worst case scenario, repost things every couple of months. Nothing wrong with that. Okay? Don't lie and say you took it yesterday, but go ahead and repost things every couple of months. I've done that. Not a problem. Okay? It's all a matter of making sure that you're getting your stuff out in front of people. Don't be, my sincere advice is, don't be the photographer that goes to Craigslist and says, hey, I'll do your portraits for $50. Don't be that guy. Figure out now what your pricing should be. Set your prices now. If you need sessions to build your portfolio, you contact people and offer to do it for free in exchange for an 8x10 print, and make it very clear up front. Anything else you want, here's my price list. You will pay for it. There's no discount. There's no favors, because most portrait photographers are going to charge a minimum of $50 for an 8x10, usually a whole lot more. So they're getting a deal by doing that, a really good deal. They're getting a free session, and they're getting a $50 print, even though you're only going to spend $3 for it. Okay? So that's the way you go do that. But I would not build your marketing on Craigslist at all. You're only going to get bottom feeders there. And I know that sounds really mean. You know, I'm the guy that always defends the $500 wedding photographers. So here, one little side note. We'll run a few minutes over. I'll answer questions. But I want to be clear about this too. People get all uppity about the photographer that offers to do a full wedding for $500 and then give away all the images. And whenever that happens, when I see that online, and especially if it happens in my group, man, I come down hard on the photographer that's doing the whining. Because here's the reality. It is incredibly arrogant to think that someone should not be able to get a wedding done for $500. And the simple reason is, there are a lot of people, not just in the United States, but elsewhere in the world, that can't even afford $500. So is it fair that because they can't afford $500, they should not be entitled to get pictures of their wedding? Now, we all know and we all understand that, number one, the photographer that's doing the wedding for $500 is probably not very experienced and is probably not the best photographer in the world. We also know and understand, if we stop whining and feeling sorry for ourselves, that photographer that's doing the weddings for $500 is not going to be able to make a full-time living doing a wedding for $500. And since you're trying to do a wedding for $2,000, $3,000, or $5,000, what are the odds that photographer is actually stealing your business? They're not, because you're going after a completely different caliber of customer. So in that sense, Gary, you've got to figure out, what do you want to charge for your stuff? What are your prices going to be? And those are your prices. I'm a big, firm believer in never, ever, ever discount your prices. It's like shopping at Kohl's. My wife is a diehard Kohl's shopper, except she will only shop at Kohl's when she has a 30% off discount. Kohl's, and this is the reason why Kohl's is hurting financially. They have trained women, don't shop here with anything less than 30% off. So we get the Kohl's mailers all the time, and if it's a 50% off coupon, my wife puts it in the trash. If it's a 20% off coupon, my wife puts it in the trash. If it's a 30% off coupon, she will find a reason to go to Kohl's. Anything less, she's not going. Done. The same thing happens with you if you discount your prices. I would rather do something for someone for free, or if I have a package, let's say just for ease of conversation, it's $100. And somebody says, I can't afford the $100. I'm not going to discount it to do them a favor, but if I want to do them a favor, I'll say, well, you know what? I can't give you all of this for $100, but I'll give you 2/3 of it for $100. And then I take something out. That way I've maintained the value of my services. I'm just going to give them less. It's that simple. It's a real simple concept. But don't ever show your clients that your true value is less than what you're asking for. The minute you've done that, you've blown it. You've lost the game. Okay? So, Gary, seriously, I wish you a lot of luck, man. You've got some great stuff there. You definitely got some work ahead of you. But I know I'll be seeing more of you in my group. And, also I'll look forward to seeing what you do with your website in the coming months. Okay? So, a couple questions that we have here. Eric Red Cloud's got a question. He started off as a travel photographer. Would a separate domain or subdomain be good for selling the landscapes? Yeah, absolutely, Eric. As I mentioned already, I would do it as a separate domain. Don't do it as a subdomain even. I mean, you can, but the reality of it is you're going to use a completely different, most likely going to use a completely different web host for your landscape stuff that you're going to sell because you want the e-commerce aspect and the fulfillment aspect built in. So you're probably going to wind up with two completely different hosts. So all I would be concerned about is, can I put the same logo in both places and use the same white background or whatever color background you're using so that, overall it's identified the same. But you're not worried about your wedding or your portrait clients going to your landscape site and vice versa. So I would just use two completely different domains and take it from there. The problem that I found, and I talk about this in my marketing series of videos that are on YouTube, in my experience, the companies that have the e-commerce solutions like SmugMug, Sendfolio, and PixieSet, they're great on the e-commerce side and they're great for that experience. They're not great for the portfolio portion of the website. They're really kind of clunky. And then the flip side of that, the companies that are really good on the portfolio side, they don't have the options for all the fulfillment and the ordering. So in that sense, I would actually go in two completely separate directions for it. Obviously, basically what you're doing is you're creating two small businesses. So you got to work on both of them. You got to market them. You got to promote them, but do them separately. Okay. Richard Kiefer, what makes the YouTube live streams worth your while? They seem to be getting less views than the tutorials. What are the benefits of the live shows in terms of monetization? Well, first of all, Richard, that's not the topic that we're talking about, but I'll gladly tell you. They do get less views than the tutorials, but they're growing. The Wednesday night and the Monday night ones are the ones that get the true traction. I make really, really good advertising dollars off of the live shows. And number two, Richard, there's this thing called community. Why is it always about money? I hate that. And that's what offends me about your question, okay? I'm making good money. In fact, I'm ahead of my business plan that I set out last May, but I'm building community. So, Jared Polin, Fronos Photo, Tony and Chelsea, Jason Lanier, all those people, they didn't build their following in a week, in a month, and they didn't do it in a year. I'm 8 months in and kicking ass. This is all about providing value. Everybody wants to take. What am I taking? If you want to give me a donation in Super Chat, I'd appreciate that. If you want to sponsor me on Patreon, I'll appreciate that. Do you hear me come on every time I'm talking on these live shows and pitch and sell? No. My business model is different. I'm not going to share my whole business model with you. I've shared it before, at least the bulk of it. But the point is, the value is, however many people, right now there's 101 people that obviously find some value in what I'm teaching. That's the value. That's the importance of it. Why does it always have to be about dollars and cents? I'm a big believer, one, in good karma. Two, what goes around comes around. You give something to get something. But if you really want something back, you've got to give value. Done. Okay? Crystal, do customers still require physical prints and photo albums, or is everything digital, such as pictures on a USB drive? Honestly, that's going to depend on a couple of things, Crystal. One, it's going to depend on the customer and what they want. There are still some very kind of, I don't mean it to sound mean, but there's still some very old school customers that like that tangible print. And there's, as much as I don't print anymore at all. I literally have not printed a picture in at least 2 years. And I'm fine with that. Me personally, I'm absolutely fine with that. But at the same time, I totally respect the idea that there's something nice about being able to hold a big picture in your hand. The other factor that's going to drive that, if you're kind of looking at what should I be offering, is what's your competition doing? If you're in a small town and there's 5 wedding photographers or 5 portrait photographers, if they're all offering prints, you better offer prints. By all means, offer a digital option if that's what you really want to do. But, there's this fine balance as a small business person, especially when we're talking portraits, weddings, and that kind of stuff, because people will shop around. People are going to compare. Unless your work is so amazing, and if it is, good for you, but unless your work is so amazing that people have to have it, they're going to shop around. So if everybody else is offering the prints, you better offer the prints. If everybody else is offering USB only, then you could stand out by offering prints, but you better have that USB only option. That's the key there. Okay? Eric Red Cloud, what about discount for referral program? No. Give an incentive for a referral program. And I know that a lot of people will disagree with this and say, no, I do this discount program and it works out great for me. No, discount is a 4-letter word. You figure out how to spell that. But it is, I promise, okay? If you want to do a refill program, give them something. Give them another 8x10. Give them an 11x14. Give them a little mini album, whatever, the value is, give them something. Because remember, if just for round numbers, if you set your price for an 8x10 at $50 and you hand them an 8x10, you've just given them a $50 gift that cost you $3. Never give up your markup. Never give up your markup. That's the key, okay? So, next up, Paul Reeder, what is the minimum physical size for a portrait studio? 5,000 square feet in my mind, but that's not going to happen, right? I mean, Paul, on my YouTube channel, here, let me switch over real quick. There's a video. Hopefully you've seen it, DIY Home Studio. This is literally in my basement. It's 2 floors underneath me. And guys, that is the horrible part about being Joe Edelman. When I go to shoot, I have to walk down 2 whole flights of stairs. Anyway, but seriously, it's in my basement, and it's a fairly small studio. There are a lot of people that follow me here on YouTube that are in my Facebook group that do portraiture in spaces much, much, much smaller. So, if you're talking about what's the minimum size and you want to have like a viewing room, or you want to, be able to do a lot of the kind of, fancy touchy-feely experience stuff, then you're going to need some more space. You want a couple of rooms. But just to be able to shoot a portrait, you could shoot a good portrait in about like 8 or 10 running feet of space and maybe 8 feet wide. I mean, that's like a small guest bedroom. It all depends on really what you're looking to do. Okay. Let's see. CTOC Creations. How do separate domain names relate to the legal business entity registered as a sole proprietor, which you need to create two? No, not at all. You're way overthinking things there. As far as the bank account the money's going into, it's going to the same bank account, right? That's all that matters. So Amazon's probably got about 500 domain names and subdomain names. It's still Amazon. So yeah, you don't need separate ones for that. John L., for the brand new Facebook business page, do you build up by reposting all your older shoots first, or do you just start fresh? I mean, you can start fresh and then maybe filter in some of your old stuff, but yeah, you don't necessarily have to build up a ton of stuff. I certainly wouldn't start like doing paid promotions or going nuts in that sense until you've got some meat there so people can come and look around. But now you can start out kind of like, from where you're at and then you move forward. That's absolutely fine. Okay. Matt, how do you assure subjects that they will look wonderful in portraits? I almost always get asked, can you make me look 50 pounds lighter or 20 pounds younger? My response is, not only can I make you look 50 pounds lighter and 20 pounds younger or 20 years younger, I can make you look 30 pounds heavier or 30 pounds older. So don't piss me off. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, you want to show everybody that they're beautiful, but the fact of the matter is, you can't. Some people, no matter how beautiful they are not going to see how beautiful they are. So you've really got to kind of, and this is where the psychology comes in. Number one, you set good expectations. Number two, especially for the people that you realize are neurotic, lacking in self-image, et cetera, you talk to them a little bit casually. Don't put them on the spot. You try to get a sense of what their issues are so that you can kind of address that and cater to that with the way you're shooting. So if you understand what they don't like, that gives you a little bit more power to avoid that or to work around it. But yeah, that would be a whole nother 2 hours, because really it's a psychology thing more than anything is what you're going to do there. I would encourage you, Matt, if you're not in my Facebook group, you better join. But that's a good question to bring up in the Facebook group, and we can start a discussion, because I guarantee you'll get no shortage of opinions there. Or if you'd like a little bit more in depth, bring it up on one of my Wednesday night TogChats when we do the Q&A, and I can throw some suggestions there. But I'd like to hear a little more specifics from you when you bring the question up. In other words, that's a kind of general version of it. Are you referring more to the psychology piece of it or more to the technical piece of it? And give me some examples, okay? April, what are your thoughts on having a shoot recorded for marketing purposes? Yeah, I've talked about this before, and I'm all for it. Video is the future, gang. So I'm going to be doing some videos later this year about video marketing, and I'm going to essentially show them in these Thursday night marketing talks that we do. Absolutely. You should be recording. You don't need to record like a whole session. That's boring as hell. And plus, you wouldn't want it. Come on, think about it, gang. You would not want somebody to see your whole session. That'd be a bad move. But yes, you even if you use a company like Animoto.com, I don't make any money on that. Upload the still pictures from the shoot and a couple little short clips, put some music behind it. They give you back this really cool video. Awesome marketing, really powerful. I talk about this guy all the time. There's a photographer down in New Orleans. He's just north of New Orleans, Louisiana. His name is Kirk Vauclain. Kirk is one of the first guys that really defined the senior portrait genre. His work is incredible. He is classic Louisiana guy. He's a carrot top. He's got the whole Louisiana accent, kind of a high-pitched voice. He's a character times 50. I did an event with him a couple years back out in Denver. It was called Meeting the Masters. And he told the story. And Kirk's work is brilliant as a photographer, but he's also a brilliant businessman. It was actually really cool for me because, this was only 5 years ago. So I was well into my career. But I can honestly say I learned some really cool things from Kirk at this event. And one of the little things he did, because we were both talking about Animoto, because at the time I was just getting into video and not shooting my own so much, but using it for marketing. He was actually sponsored by Animoto, so he was very involved with what they were doing. But what he does, which is brilliant, so he sets price points. In order to get one of these Animoto videos from your senior portrait session, you have to spend a certain amount of money. Below that, you can buy one for like $500. But if you hit like $2,000 in orders, you get one for free. So, of course, senior portraits get shot in the summertime and late spring. So what he does is when he shoots them, he tells people, hey, you spent the limit. You're going to get the free video, but you're not going to get it until next April or May. And he makes them wait. And then as he tells the story, what he does is, in middle of spring or late spring, he sits outside by his swimming pool with his laptop and a 6-pack of beer, and he spends a day and he puts together all his Animoto videos from his senior portraits from the last year. And then he sent, Natasha, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And then he sends them out to the seniors right before they graduate so that they're posting them all over social media right at the time when the juniors are starting to look for senior portrait photographers. And all he does for his videos, so this was like 5 or 6 years ago. Remember those little flip video cameras? He would take a flip camera to each shoot that he did. And of course, these are minors, so mom and dad were along. And what he would do at some point during the shoot, Kirk always shoots on a tripod. He doesn't hand-hold anything at all. He shoots everything on a tripod. So what he would do at some point during the shoot is he would hand the flip camera to mom and say, here, record this for me. And he would call the kid over after he takes their picture. And as the kid gets to the back of the camera, he pressed the preview button. So the kid comes around, looks at it, and it's like, wow. And literally, that's the only video clip that he put in the whole Animoto thing, is the kid looking at the picture that he just took going, wow. And it's golden. It's so brilliant, so simple, and the timing is so perfect. It's golden. So yes, video sells. Plain and simple, it totally sells. Okay? All right, gang, listen, thank you so much. It's been great to have all of you here tonight. I was amiss tonight, so I'm going to ask you now, please, if you're not following me, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff, please follow me. Whatever you do, if you haven't done it already, please subscribe. The link is right below the video here. And of course, thumbs up, like it, really, really appreciate it. And comments are also greatly appreciated. Okay? So again, thank you guys for hanging out with me for another evening about marketing. Remember, I'll be back Monday for photo reviews. Got some really cool images lined up for next week. Next Wednesday for the Q&A. And not to toot my own horn, but if you haven't been to one of my Q&As yet here on YouTube, you're missing out. They have been pretty intense. We've covered tons of really, really good stuff, had great discussions. Wednesday nights, in case you don't know, it's an open mic night. It's your questions, my answers. And then next Thursday, be back here for another marketing night. So listen, gang, you know how it works. Pay attention to these words.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now go and pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.